The processes of the architect and the contractor are divided. The division of architecture and construction negatively affects the built world and all of the individuals involved in any given building project. If architecture and construction became one process, many problems with cost, scheduling, and miscommunication would be solved. The initial goal of this thesis was to resurrect the historic figure known as the master builder in order to provide a seamless service of design and construction. The myth of the master builder has led many, including myself, astray. The figures in the past that are currently being labeled as master builders were actually architects that created a vision and worked with builders through a single process of design and construction. Although the master builder is not a viable solution for integrating the processes of design and building today, the master builder is an example of the unity that can exist between architecture and construction. The segregated processes of architecture and construction can be a single process if the architect and the contractor are one. When the architect and contractor are unified, the result will be a built work far superior than what could be done by either individual working separately. Byung-Soo Cho and Luis Longhi are two architects that implement a single process of design and building. Although there are subtle differences between their processes, the single process is achieved through deep relationships with their contractors. Both of these architects create a vision for each project and work in unity with the contractor through a single design and construction process. Byung-Soo Cho and his contractor had a relationship in place for the construction of the concrete box house. The relationship allowed the house to be built using mostly verbal communication. The contractor was able to understand his vision and implement the vision without detailed drawings. This project was built while Cho was in the United States, so he had to trust that his staff and contractor would carry out the project as he would. The design process by nature is cyclical, while the construction process is linear. Unifying the processes makes the single process of design and building a cyclical process. Cho's design process includes exploration into materiality and constructability. The exploration in design is communicated to the contractor and implemented in the built work. What is built is then communicated back to Cho, and the cyclical process continues through the duration of the project. This creates a seamless workflow between the architect and the contractor during design and construction. Each detail of the concrete box house was worked through this rotary type of exploration and implementation. One element essential to the vision of the project was the concrete roof, which was made to be waterproof without the use of parapets or traditional sealants. Cho used the exploration, communication, implementation, communication process to realize his vision for the roof. A hypothesis, thesis, and purpose can be derived from his design intent. This intent is described as a goal, which is his vision for the roof. The vision is put through his process of design, which is to rethink the material and construction methods, research to gain knowledge of the material, experiment to gain experience with the material, then evaluate what was done. This continues until he feels it's ready to be implemented. The vision is communicated with the contractor and is either implemented or sent back through the process of exploration. The relationships that Cho has created in his staff and contractor were developed over time. Just as he trained his staff to work as he does, Cho trained his contractor to build the projects as if Cho were building it himself. All the work that comes out of Cho's office is overseen by him, and all the work that is built on site is overseen by him. The relationships that are set up allow a lot of work to be done by many people working as one. Cho's firm started as a design-build firm, with the contractor working under the architect. The firm provided both design and construction services as a single entity. What was important with this contractual relationship was that there was a deeper relationship inside the design-build firm. For this project, Cho is both the architect and the owner. What was seen in the concrete box house process was the product of the relationship between Cho and his contractor in previous projects. Cho communicated to his contractor and made his vision understood. The contractor then relayed that vision to each worker on site. Cho was in the office and on site every day, even though he was in another country, because his staff and contractor communicated with him and worked as he would. Cho was born in South Korea and studied pottery before he went to the United States for school. He graduated from Montana State with a Bachelor's of Architecture. Then he received his Master's of Architecture from Harvard Graduate School of Design. He worked for various firms in the U.S. and Korea for 3 years before starting his own design-build firm in 1994. In the 16 years since he started his firm, he has completed roughly 60 projects. In 2004, he started the design and construction of the concrete box house. The design and construction were carried out as one process, led by Cho through relationships with his staff and contractor. The concrete box house was not made through a segregated process of design and construction, nor was it made by a single master builder. The architect and builder worked as one, unifying the design and construction processes. Luis Longhi designed Casa Pachacama. The relationship that was in place between Longhi and his contractor allowed the house to be designed while it was being constructed. The contractor was able to understand his vision and implement the vision with a combination of drawings, computer renderings, and verbal communication. This project was constantly evolving throughout the design and construction process. Although the general feeling and conceptual idea was kept, the details that were built adapted as construction progressed. Longhi works the design and construction process as one cyclical process. Although the design was brought to schematic level before construction started, the details were designed, communicated, and built as construction progressed. Once construction began, Longhi would detail an area as needed by the contractor. This would be done through sketches, computer renderings, and verbal communication. Then it would be built, and the next detail would be designed. This created a seamless workflow between the architect and the contractor throughout the construction process, and unified the processes to be one. Each detail of Casa Pachacama was worked through this rotary type of detailing and constructing. One element of the house that shows the process well was the stair detail. The conceptual idea was born through Longhi's intuition of ancient Inca culture. This intuition processed into a vision by Longhi that represents the feeling desired. This feeling is conceptualized into a sketch and visualized by him or someone in his firm using a computer-generated model. The visualization is then evaluated by the architect and either redeveloped through a conceptual process or communicated to the contractor to be built on the project. The visualization that is to be built is communicated until the contractor sees the vision for the detail, then it is built. The relationships that Longhi has created in his staff and contractor were developed over time. Longhi has trained his staff since they were first years in architecture school. They work as he would work, and Longhi only has to oversee what leaves the office. He formed a relationship with the contractor and started working with him on small projects. Soon they learned to work as one, and now they can design and build several large projects at once, while retaining control of the vision of the project. All of the work that comes out of his office is overseen by Longhi, and all of the work that is built on site is overseen by him. Longhi's firm operates as a design bid build firm, with the contractor being a separate entity from the architect. Longhi's firm provided design services and his contractor provided construction services. Because they have a relationship, they can be separate entities and work as one on any project. For Casa Pachacama, the contractual structure was less important than what was happening between the architect and the contractor, which was an architect-led, unified process, where the contractor became an extension of the design process, and the processes were able to become one. Longhi was born in Lima, Peru. He received his Bachelor's of Architecture from Universidad Ricardo Palma before he went to the United States for graduate school. He graduated from University of Pennsylvania with his Master's of Architecture in Sculpture. He worked for various firms in the U.S. and studied computer animation at Harvard Graduate School of Design before he started his own firm in 1994. Since he started his firm, he has completed 50 projects. In 2006, he began the design and construction of Casa Pachacama. The design and construction were carried out as one process, led by Longhi through relationships with his staff and contractor. Casa Pachacama was not made through a segregated design and construction process. It was not made by a single master builder. The architect and builder worked as one, unifying the design and construction processes. To test the unified process, I designed a coffee kiosk at the University of Hawaii School of Architecture. Relationships revealed themselves naturally as the project progressed. Several people were instrumental in the realization of the vision for the project, but 2 contractors committed to see the project finished using a unified process. Construction started with a general plan to use certain materials, but the details and some programmatic decisions developed as the construction progressed. Although the general feeling and conceptual idea was kept, the project was constantly evolving throughout the design and construction process. Although the design of the kiosk was brought to a schematic level before construction started, the plan changed a few days before construction, and detailed drawings were not completed. So the details were designed, communicated, and built during the construction process. This was done through verbal communication and sketches. The paradigm of the contractor and myself was flipped upside down. This was the first time we had completed a project together. We were constantly giving each other feedback on what was happening and how the process could be better. There was an agreement between the contractors and myself to work through the problems and to finish the project with my vision intact. A big problem was, without a detailed plan, the contractor felt like he was walking forward and looking straight down instead of what roadblocks could be in front of us. Many times I had to reassure them to keep moving forward and trust me that we weren't going to hit anything. The design and construction of the kiosk was done through real-time verbal communication or pre-construction discussion with sketches and verbal communication. This rotary type of detailing and construction allowed the design process to unfold alongside the construction process. The conceptual idea for the wood facade was done through a process similar to what I learned from Cho in his studio. The metal frame differed from the wood facade because nothing was fabricated to test how these 2 details would connect. I trusted the expertise and relationship that I had with the contractors. As we built the frame, we talked through the connections of the wood facade. This included the connections and the desired outcome of both the details. During the 3-week construction process, there was a lot of trial and error in the relationships. I was surprised at the contractor's willingness to work with me and adjust the relationship through the process. One of the biggest adjustments came from me simply not trusting the contractor to do the work as I had intended. I adjusted by letting go micromanagement of the contractor's work and letting them do what they do best. This meant that I had to trust them to be an extension of the design process. As the process progressed, it became more seamless. In order to coordinate the design alongside construction, there should be one individual over the design, the architect, and one person over the construction, the contractor. These 2 roles have to be defined through a relationship between the 2 individuals on the project. For the kiosk project, I had to cross the line from designer to builder several times, and I was working both over the contractor as the designer and under the contractor as the laborer. If the project had been any larger in scale, it would have been impossible to complete, as the project was already testing my ability to straddle the fence between architecture and construction. I learned that the rotary process must stay well ahead of the physical building, as any problem or delay in design and construction will mean a delay in scheduling. The kiosk was an experiment in the unity between the designer and the contractor. I found that the relationship of oneness is not automatic, but can develop to work seamlessly if the willingness is present in both individuals. I was born in the U.S. in 1985. In 2001, I apprenticed with a general contractor and have worked in various trades for 4 years. In 2005, I entered into the University of Hawaii School of Architecture. I traveled to Peru in 2009 and 2010 to study with Luis Longhi, and Korea in 2011 to study with Byung-Soo Cho. I started the Coffee Kiosk project on September 13, 2011, and worked with several contractors through a pre-design and then a design and construction phase. It took 21 days to construct the kiosk and canopy project, and was only possible through the relationships I implemented during the single process of design and construction. It was not built by a segregated process, nor was it built by a single master builder. The kiosk project was built with a unified process between the contractors and myself. The one thing I learned most from this project was to respect the process, the learning, the growing, and the relationships. When the goal is unity, it has much less to do with the physical built work and more to do with the relationship between the designer and the builder. Once a relationship is established, the superior built work becomes a byproduct of the unity of individuals and the unity of process.